Jim Fetzer with James Fetzer News with my special guest, Stephen Lendman. Stephen, you have recently written about the catastrophe in the Gulf involving the BP oil rig catastrophe, and I take it now there's another with a very different outcome that occurred off the coast of Venezuela.
Oh, indeed so. Some breaking news this morning. Probably when people see this YouTube, they'll have heard the news, but I got an AP bulletin that a natural gas platform sunk off the coast of Venezuela. Completely different scenario than in the Gulf. The Gulf is a growing disaster. It may turn out to be the greatest environmental disaster in U.S. history, maybe the greatest one ever. The one off the coast of Venezuela, it's natural gas, it's not oil. They had advance warning. Everybody got off the platform. Nobody was hurt. There are no leaks. Apparently, there will not be environmental damage. What happens when a platform sinks and it lies on the bottom of the ocean? I don't know. There could be deterioration. But apparently, there's plenty of time to deal with this. Completely opposite scenario from the Gulf. And BP knew they had problems. They had a lot of advance warning on this. They did absolutely nothing about it, and the Obama administration is complicit.
Stephen, I understand BP has a terrible record in relation to the environment, that they have been the greatest polluters of all.
They sure have. Of all the oil companies, they are all scofflaws. BP is at the head of the pack. They have the worst record of all the oil companies, and they're allowed to get away with it. Nobody's going to do anything to stop them. Not the Bush administration, not the Obama administration. They just wink and nod at all the things they do. My article, Jim, I called it Lessons from the Gulf. I listed in recent years alone offenses that BP was accused of, fines it paid, pocket change. This is a company that grossed $239 billion in sales in 2009, made $14 billion in profits. So you find them $2 million here, $20 million there. They had a terrible disaster in Texas in 2005. Texas City refinery killed 17 people, I believe, injured about 170. They paid $87 million in fines. Can you imagine that? This was criminal negligence that caused that. Criminal negligence. $87 million. They were sued. I don't know what the final settlement of that was, Jim, and it probably hasn't taken place yet. But the courts awarded $100 million to the survivors, and I guess families of the people killed. $100 million? 170, 17, 200 people? I mean, their lives are wrecked.
It is a disgrace, Stephen, as you observe, and there seems to be no justice about it. Politicians and administration officials seem to be providing cover for these potential threats to the environment, no matter how catastrophic they might be.
Oh, indeed so. Can I read one thing? This was a little brief that I spotted this morning. It was written on the 10th of May by the Center for Biological Diversity. I believe I quoted them on the article. I quoted a number of people. And they say, with regard to the BP spill, the first effort didn't work. The so-called giant dome they were putting down, they're going to try a smaller one. And here's what they say at the end of this very brief article. Efforts to solve the problem continue, but the dome has been set aside for a few days. Other fixes in the works include using a smaller containment dome that apparently is down there. They're going to give that a try now. Shooting debris such as tires and golf balls into the well, or cutting the leaking pipe and putting larger pipe like a straw over it. These are all untested and risky solutions, and some of them may also have the potential to increase the oil flow. In the meantime, controlled burns of the oil on the surface have belched fire and smoke into the atmosphere, and this is causing terrible problems as this stuff happens close to the coast or wherever. People are breathing it in, and the BP could end up making a greater problem than they already have.
Stephen, what most Most Americans who've never studied ecology or evolution do not understand is that the ramifications of this catastrophe are enormous. This massive oil spill threatens all forms of ocean life, shrimp, fish, coral reefs, a vast panoply of not only sources of income for jobs, food for Americans, but it has the potential to bring about a break in the levels of ecology, where each higher level feeds on forms of life from the lower. It could have a catastrophic effect even on the existence of the human species.
You really could, Jim. If this thing goes on, and they say if these fixes they're trying now don't work, it could take 3 months to stop this thing. You have to drill. I don't know what they do. They drill it. They drill another hole down there, and they do whatever they do to plug it up. I mean, this could take many weeks to do if it works. And there's a good chance what they're trying now won't work. This could contaminate all the coasts in the Gulf, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, and Texas. It could go down into the Florida Keys. It can come up the East Coast. It could go all the way up the East Coast and contaminate offshore all the way up to the banks off Newfoundland. I mean, we're talking about something that is absolutely beyond imagination, Jim. And one more. Well, there were a lot of things to talk about. BP lied at the beginning. They said 1,000 barrels were leaking. Then they changed the story to 5,000. And experts studying NASA photos say it looks like more on the order of 25,000. This is already well past the Exxon Valdez disaster. 11 million barrels of oil. Barrels of oil. The barrels are gallons.
Barrels.
11 million.
What?
11 million barrels of oil. I mean, this thing is going to go on and on.
Well,
how many million barrels are we talking about if this thing goes on for 3 months?
And Stephen, it's just turning the ocean into a vast wasteland. The ocean is the source of all life. If you have the entire Gulf of Mexico turned into a polluted wasteland, the consequences are almost incalculable. It's going to be devastating to every state that borders and every nation. It's frightening to contemplate.
It really is. And one thing I didn't mention in my article, I could not imagine. I wrote about the New York bomb incident, as you know, Jim, and I wrote 2 articles. My first one was suggesting the possibility that we could have another false flag. There've been so many of them. I could not imagine at first glance that this was a false flag, but I'm giving it some rethought. And here's what's on my mind. The House passed the cap and trade bill. The cap and trade bill is now in the Senate. It's been introduced in the Senate, has a different name than the House. What this bill will do will raise energy prices. So all the energy companies love this thing, and it'll give Wall Street the greatest potential derivatives trading scheme, greater than all the other ones put together, by one of the guests who comes on my program, a Wall Street insider, and she calls the derivatives trading scheme this bill will create, if it passes, it'll make all the ones up to now look like target practice. Those are her words. Could this be a false flag that went awry? I don't think they want to pollute the Atlantic Ocean, the entire Gulf of Mexico. I think they wanted to start a little fire that they could contain, but maybe they created something they can't control. Literally a false flag that is ballooned way beyond their capacity to control. Possibility.
How was the creating of the fire going to benefit the cap and trade, passage of the cap and trade, Stephen?
Oh, the idea being that we need an energy bill. Nobody explains it. Nobody says what's in it. But the idea is we need an energy bill. We need to address global warming. We need to address other environmental problems. Dare I say, pollution in the Gulf. So nobody connects this bill to what's going on now. It has no connection. But they may make people want to believe there's a connection to get this bill passed, that the energy companies want, that Wall Street wants. That's the connection.
Stephen, the ecological ramifications are so vast, this could turn out to be the greatest environmental disaster in human history.
It's beyond human imagination, Jim. That's exactly right. And if the contamination gets great enough, it will never be remediated. None in a decade,